Welcome, everybody. My name is Stuart Schlossman, and for those that do not know, this is going to be our 25th program of this year. Last year, we did a grand total of 31, which was our big year, and this is our 25th, and we are easily going to break 40 when this year comes to a close. Not only is it our 25th program of the year, this is our 118th program since we began doing programs in February of 2010. There's a great need for these kinds of programs, not just here in South Florida. We are now doing programs in Alabama, Georgia, and North Carolina. We hope to be in South Carolina before the end of the year, and then occasionally we'll break out and we're being asked to go to places like Indianapolis. We're being asked to go to Pittsburgh. We're being asked to go to New York, even all the way out to Los Angeles. That will not be part of our yearly curriculum, but we'll just throw in one every now and then just to really gain some mileage on my airline points. So, before we begin again, let me even go a step further here. We want to thank for tonight's program because, again, I really need everybody to understand this. We cannot do these programs without the support of the pharmaceutical industry. For tonight's program, I want to thank Genzyme, a Sanofi company, for providing the funding to do tonight's program, and I hope that all of you can thank them as well. In addition to Genzyme, a Sanofi company, we also want to thank our other sponsors for tonight, and those are QuestCore, who, as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, is with a new name. They are now known to be known as Mallinckrodt. Okay, QuestCore was taken over by Mallinckrodt, and that's the name that you're going to have to learn how to spell and remember. And they are the makers of Acthar Gel, which is used in replacement of Solumedrol. So for those that have a problem with that, well, our speaker here tonight was probably going to touch on this, okay? So I'm not going to go any further. In addition to QuestCore Mallinckrodt, we have Teva, who's the manufacturer of Copaxone. We have NSCFF, which is Neuroscience Center's Florida Foundation, who is here, and you met out in the lobby, and they're doing lots of different programs in the Miami area now, and we want to thank them for supporting everything that we do. And of course, again, Genzyme, a Sanofi company, is greatly responsible for a lot of the programs that we do, as are Teva, as are the other pharmaceutical companies. And I am very, very delighted that we have them to support everything that we are doing and enabling us to do for the MS communities globally. So thank you again. Tonight, we're having Patricia Pagnotta, a nurse practitioner, who's going to explain everything that she does. She came down from Orlando. Yes, I got her to come in from Orlando to speak with you all tonight. She's going to speak about some of the basics as well as nutrition and self aspects of, who you are and what you need to be doing, a little bit of everything. And before I introduce or bring Patricia to the podium, I'm just going to let you know also that Jennifer Falk of NSCFF, who's a social worker down in Miami, she will be speaking with you about those other issues, the impact on employment and on your family. So thank you again for all coming out here tonight, and let's get this program started. Thank you. Patricia. There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart, so much for having me, and I am happy to be down here. And believe it or not, I left rain to come here, and I think we got rain the whole way. So anyhow, I do come from the MS Center of Greater Orlando. You can see our logo on these slides that I'm about to present. And Stuart has asked me to talk to you about women's health and MS. I am a nurse practitioner by training. I've been in nursing for forever, it seems like, but have been treating MS for greater than 10 years at the MS Center of Greater Orlando, so have a lot of experience in MS and hope that I'm able to answer all of your questions tonight. So let's get started. So there is no way that I could talk to you about, and I think that this will move, about self-care, taking care of yourself, if we didn't first start with, once you've been diagnosed, you need to think about, I've got this disease, it's a chronic disease, and now I need to learn how to take care of myself. And the very first thing that you should be considering is what I talk to patients about every single day. There is a thing called freedom of disease. I believe that that is capable. We're capable of providing that for patients these days. And so I challenge you to think about that as you're talking to your provider, freedom of disease. How do we define that? There's clinical activity, which means no relapses, no progression of disability. And then there's MRI activity, and that means no gadolinium enhancing lesions or no new T2 or enlarging T2 lesions. So we want persons to be free of any signs of MS, and that is possible. Currently now we have 10 disease-modifying therapies that are available for us to prescribe. So with the advent of the orals, you can see them all up here. We started out with Betaseron, Avonex, Copaxone. Novantrone came to market. I don't know of very many persons that prescribe Novantrone anymore. Rebif, Tysabri, Extavia, Gilenya, Aubagio, Tecfidera. And then you see the ones in the yellow. The ones in the yellow, Plegridy and Lemtrada, are currently before the FDA right now. We anticipate before the end of the year they will be out. We anticipate that Plegridy will come out before Lemtrada. At least the fiducia date is nearing soon on Plegridy. Lemtrada has until December, the FDA, to make a decision. The bottom line is we have injectable therapies. We have oral therapies. We have therapies that have a variety of different mechanism of actions. We have therapies that have proven success in patients, some persons who have been more than 20 years with this disease. And so there is no reason for a person who has a relapsing form of MS. All of these therapies right now are FDA approved for relapsing forms of multiple sclerosis. And there are studies with Gilenya right now that are looking into progressive, so we are bridging into that area. But right now, what can you do for yourself? One of the things that you can do for yourself is make a commitment that I'm going to keep myself free of disease. I am going to go on a disease-modifying therapy, and I'm going to strive for disease freedom. And so if any of those things that we talked about, relapses, disability, MRI activity occur, you are not free of disease, and you should have a discussion with your healthcare provider about what should I do now. So in keeping with the women's topic, we are talking about women tonight, pregnancy. That's one of the most common questions that my women ask me. What's going to happen to me? Can I get pregnant? MS has no effect on fertility. Please understand that. You are not in any way less fertile than you were before you got MS. And so therefore, you need to think about that. The majority of persons, pregnancy is a protective time. And sometimes persons will tell them, depending upon how they're doing, go ahead, get pregnant. Sometimes, again, always we hope it's a planned decision. So planning pregnancy, why do we ask persons to plan pregnancy? We ask persons to plan pregnancy because there is not a disease-modifying therapy that is approved in pregnancy. The best category you get is with Copaxone. So you see the drugs I have listed here in the little brackets. B is for Copaxone. That still is not an FDA-approved drug that we can give during pregnancy. It's a little bit safer. We know also the interferons are a little bit safer. So we ask persons to talk to their GYN OB persons about LARCs, long-acting reversible contraceptives. There are several of them out on the market. I am not a specialist in contraceptives, but there are several of them out there. There are more that are out there than are disease-modifying therapies, so there should not be a reason why persons could not get on a reliable birth control and plan pregnancy. All of the oral drugs, with the exception of Aubagio, get a pregnancy category C, Aubagio, I am not quite sure why the FDA decided to make it a pregnancy category X. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. But as far as all of these drugs have pregnancy registries, and all of these drugs compare what their drug potentially does to a person, both in clinical trials and in post-marketing trials, compared to the normal rate of problems with pregnancy. I don't know if any of you know that healthy individuals that get pregnant, 3 to 4% of those individuals will have a problem during their pregnancy or have a child that has a birth defect. So pregnancy is not a guarantee, even in healthy individuals, that you'll have a perfectly normal baby. So again, if you do get pregnant on a disease-modifying therapy, please sign up for one of those registries so that we can collect that data and we know more about that. During pregnancy, most of my patients, even my patients that nobody knows they have MS, other than the fact that they've told their GYN, I've got MS, then most of my patients wind up getting put in a high-risk category. What does that mean? There is no statistics that say, again, that pregnancy is a problem for persons with MS. It's just if your MS becomes more active. So frequently, the OBs will go ahead and put persons in a high-risk category just so that they can monitor a person more carefully, and that helps with liability. But you would do the same things that you do with a normal pregnancy as a person who has MS with pregnancy. And you're going to see in a little bit that I talk about supplements. When it comes to pregnancy, whatever your OB says that you should take as far as supplements, they will confer with us. Please go ahead and take those supplements. Okay, so here are the FDA categories. I just wanted to put them up here for a brief second, not that I intend on you all studying these, but I have been told that come next year, these categories are going to go away. Next year, maybe if it gets held up the year after, we will not have categories A, B, C, D, and X. And so A is the only category that has been proven effective to be, proven effectively to be safe in pregnancy with human trials. So you notice none of those disease-modifying therapies had a pregnancy A. So in the future, it'll just be recommended or not recommended. And it's always everything you do in treating your MS, from treating your symptoms to treating your disease, is all about risk and benefits. You make the decision, risk, benefits, risk, benefits. So, routine health screenings. I hope everyone in the room, I see some young people in the room, I see some persons that might be maybe about my age. Okay, so I hope everyone gets regular health screenings. I tell all of my patients, I am not your primary care. I do pretty good at managing some things, but I am not your primary care. You need to have a primary care. And these are some of the reasons. Breast cancer. Every woman should be every month considering self-examination. Doing self-examination to make sure that you are monitoring, that you are looking for changes in your breasts, lumps in your breasts, anything that is different. And then depending if you find something, you may need a mammogram. But at least at the age 40, you should be getting annual mammograms. Now, depending upon your family history, you may get mammograms sooner than 40, but at bare minimum by the age 40. Also, depending upon your family history, you may get a Brock testing. This is a genetic test looking for your tendency to potentially have breast cancer. And we all know a famous celebrity that went ahead and had a bilateral mastectomy because she was BRCA screened positive. Cervical cancer. Women should be screened for cervical cancer from the age 21 to 65 with a pap smear at least every 3 years. At age 30, we should consider adding HPV screening, human papillovirus, and that should be done every 5 years. So that is also part of a good GYN screening. Colon cancer is not recommended unless there's a family history until persons get to be 50. So that's your 50th birthday gift. Everybody gets a colonoscopy in year 50, hopefully. And then depending upon your family history, that may go on every 3 to 5 years. Now, osteoporosis is something that persons who have MS should be particularly concerned about. Not that MS causes osteoporosis, but there's a lot of steroids some persons get. Some people don't. Some people are very fortunate, don't have relapses, they treat their disease well, or they have a more benign course and they don't have a lot of relapses, and therefore they don't get steroids, which is IVMP, Solumedrol, prednisone, even Athgar can promote osteoporosis. So if you're a normal, healthy person, don't have any history of steroids, then at 65 they say that you should start being screened for osteoporosis. Most of my MS patients are being screened much sooner, and I have not had a problem getting persons covered when I give them the diagnosis of MS. So I usually tell my patients that at least at age 40 you should start being screened for osteoporosis. Hepatitis C, I put this up here because I want you to know that everyone should be screened at least once for having hepatitis C. Now, most persons understand that hepatitis C comes from injections. When you read in the Google, it'll tell you hepatitis C comes from injections. So I have several of my patients ask me, should I be screened more frequently? I take injections. No, what they're talking about is injections from unclean needles or recreational injection use, not pre-filled syringes, auto-injectors, nothing like that. So, but again, depending upon what you work in your history, you may need to be screened more frequently also. HIV testing should also be done at least once. Everyone should have an HIV test, and depending upon your risk factors, you may be screened multiple times. So again, but at least once. Lung cancer. Lung cancer screening starts at age 55 and goes on to 80, and depending on family history. Now, there is no incidence of increased lung cancer and MS. This, again, we're talking about general routine health. So don't let me scare you. None of these other cancers come up more frequently in MS either. So routine annual screenings outside of those big screenings. Every time on an annual basis that you go see your general health care provider, you should be screened for the following: depression, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, thyroid screening, even if you're not on an interferon, obesity, sexually transmitted diseases, and immunizations. So, what can you do for yourself? You can do for yourself by keeping up these routine screenings. Make sure that you don't get some of these other diseases. Diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, obesity are major risk factors for cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease, heart disease still ranks there with the #1 killer. Strokes is #3. And guess what? Strokes are white matter changes in your brain. So you want to keep yourself healthy, keep your risk for cardiovascular disease down. So work on that. Obesity, exercise, and diet are a wonderful thing to keep away obesity. And immunizations. Persons ask me frequently about immunizations. Multiple sclerosis, persons who have multiple sclerosis should get immunizations on a regular basis. The only immunizations that persons who have multiple sclerosis should not get are live viruses. So anything that is not live. So every year when the flu vaccine comes out, I get a whole bunch of questions. You think I don't tell my patients this, but they all call and ask, can I get the flu vaccine? Yes, you can, provided you don't get a nasal. You can get a flu shot, and you should get a flu shot. Persons of general health should do that. And I know it doesn't cover every strain of flu, but it does cover some, and we just have to pray that we don't get the others. Okay. So next, nutrition. We're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about what that is a healthy diet, what are some common myths about nutrition, and what research has been done. So nutrition basically is nourishment. It's food that our bodies need to stay alive. It's the consumption and utilization of foods for optimum health. That's all nutrition means. Diet and nutrition, that's all that means. Those are not dirty words. But what is a healthy diet? A healthy diet really is what you eat rather than how much you eat. And so I talk to my patients, and sometimes they'll tell me as they're gaining a little bit of weight, you know, I always eat off the light menu. I don't go to fast food places. You know, I'm trying really hard to cut my carbs. I don't, and so, you know, that's not necessarily a healthy diet. So what is a healthy diet? A healthy diet requires variety, portionality, moderation. Those are the components of a healthy diet. The government has a really good program to help persons be more healthy. MyPyramid.gov has a wonderful, nice, colorful chart. You can download that. You can get apps of that, and it can help you very much with managing your diet. Now, I've had several persons tell me that they don't think I'm overweight. I don't know what you all think in the room, but would you be surprised to know that I keep track of what I eat? Well, I do, because I'm a vegan. And so my concern is, am I getting variety, proportionality? I know I get moderation. I take care of that. But I need to make sure that I get the right amount of nutrients. There are several apps that you can download. Most people have smartphones. So if you don't want to use mypyramid.gov, there are several apps that you can download to your smartphones, and you can just, for a week, write what you eat in there. You'll get the nutritional content of what you eat, the calories, and you can even in some of those put in the exercise that you do, so you can figure that out. So common myths. These are things that I hear from persons sometimes, A, as I'm diagnosing them, but B, as we're moving along and talking about disease-modifying therapies. Sometimes persons will say to me, my diet caused my MS. Well, I want you to know that diets don't cause MS. But I also want you to know that there is yet to be a diet that cures MS. So there's no diet to cause MS. There is no diet to cure MS. I've put some websites up on this slide here for you of diets that say that they cure MS. And, you know, I feel very empathetic for persons who have MS. And I would love to hand my patients who have MS a cure. And so I'm sure as you read something off of one of these websites, you might think, wow, there's a cure. I want to go for that. But I'm going to point out a few things. Multivitamins are good for me. Again, this is a myth. Persons think that multivitamins are good for me. And they also think contrarily that, well, supplements can't hurt me. If I can get it over the counter, it can't hurt me. Everybody's heard about liver failure and Tylenol, right? You can get Tylenol over the counter. You don't need a prescription to get Tylenol. Okay, so one of these such diets that espouses to cure MS is the Paleo Diet. Now, I just want to tell you what that is. It's a diet that is consistent with human genetic evolution of our ancestry. It's a diet that is based off of lean meats, seafood, fresh fruits, and vegetables. And it can lead to then ideal body weight, optimum health, and peak athletic performance. And in this website here, I was astounded when I saw this. This is a report, a self-described report of 4 different subjects, years before they got MS, and then after they went on this diet. And so the person in red was just doing poorly as far as an EDSS, which is what we say a person's disability score is. That person was just doing poorly all along. And so either this person had MS 22 years or so before it was diagnosed, or maybe 22 years before they were born. I'm not really clear, couldn't really pull that data out. But they were just getting worse and worse and worse. They got diagnosed with MS here. They went on this diet and they stayed the same. So it didn't cure them, but they stabilized. This person here in yellow wasn't doing so well, was getting worse, got diagnosed with MS. Look, got much worse after going on the diet. Boom, went down and then plateaued. What does that say to me? Well, most of my patients at time of diagnosis, and when this was reported, and we didn't have the number of disease-modifying therapies, when they had their first relapse, boing, they're not doing well. And then they go back down and stabilize, and there's a person who's on another disease-modifying therapy and doing well. That's what I think. This person in green was doing poorly, diagnosed, still got worse, went on the diet and stabilized. And the person in blue, similar, actually, that person went back down to having an EDSS of 0. My comments about this: clean, healthy living. That's what I tell my patients. The Paleo Diet does encourage persons to eat clean and be healthy. And so I do think that that's something that you can do for yourself. Is it the diet, or is it being clean, healthy living? This one I thought was extremely picturesque as to its claim. So this is the water cure. And this person who wrote this believes that water will cure persons, and it's a very specialized water. It's just not water you can get out of the tap, and it's not bottled water either. They run it through these special coils and whatnot. But here you read, on page 70 of my book, you will read a testimony of a person with MS who has been cured with water. The key there is you will read a testimony of a person. In tape number 4, you're also going to listen to another person who was blinded in one eye by MS and regained their sight after drinking their water. That sounds like an optic neuritis, and it got better. I don't know, and there's been no placebo-controlled studies, but when you hear about these testimonials, you need to keep that in mind. So if you wanted to look at more funny things about that, you could Google that. So what research has been done with MS and nutrition? Well, we know that vitamin D has been recognized as one of the environmental triggers for MS. We know that persons' requirements for vitamin D are much higher than we previously thought. And so even persons who don't have multiple sclerosis, oftentimes primary care persons are putting people on vitamin D now. We do know that vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and there are risks of intoxication. So persons who get more than 150 grams per milliliter can be at risk of intoxication, and so we need to be very careful about that. Studies have proven that vitamin D influences T lymphocytes. And so the regulatory T lymphocytes, so the anti-inflammatory T lymphocytes, but yet we have not been able to prove that it's a disease-modifying therapy, but it can be helpful. And so I encourage my persons, I keep persons' vitamin D levels high. I wanted to share with you how do we get vitamin D? Well, we get about 10,000 IUs per 30 minutes that we stay in the sun. Now, I don't know about any of you down south here where maybe you can't escape the sun. We can't escape it much better in Orlando either. But you would have to do that regularly because it is only sustained for 2 weeks. So you would have to have repeated exposures to the sun. And so for some persons that requires heat. And a lot of persons don't tolerate heat. So your optimal level of vitamin D, 25-OH, is about 100 nanograms per milliliter. And if you're just looking for your diet to meet your vitamin D needs, it's very hard to do. Persons whose levels are greater than 75 need 800 IUs a day. Persons that are less than 50, these are normal people, normal healthy people who don't have MS, somewhere between 1,000 and 4,000 IUs a day. So our diets rarely contain more than 300 IUs in a day. So that means you either need to eat a very rich diet or make sure you're eating fortified foods. The rich foods in vitamin D: cod liver oil, fish liver, fishes, sardines, mackerel, salmon, herring, all of those type of fishes, mushrooms, egg yolk, and then fortified foods. So if you do that, then you might be able to get a fair amount of vitamin D. But so I want to go back just a second to persons. Very rarely do I find that my persons with MS have normal vitamin D levels. Every now and again I run into someone that does. But very rarely. I have maybe about 25% of my patients who are taking 50,000 units of vitamin D every day just to keep them somewhere close to 100. My goal is to keep people between 60 and 100. I don't worry if they go slightly over or whatnot. So meet with your healthcare provider and make sure, because it is very hard. And so I tell persons who are taking over-the-counter vitamin D, you're probably not hurting yourself because it's very hard to get vitamin D. But again, 60 to 100. So vitamin C. What about vitamin C? Well, I don't recommend vitamin C to patients. I tell them, please, if you're taking vitamin C, stop that. You know, in Florida, we have no excuse for taking vitamin C. We have plenty of oranges around, plenty of grapefruit, so we should not need to take vitamin C. But vitamin C actually stimulates your T cells and your macrophages, which are part of the cells that are involved in the inflammatory process. And so you don't want to do that. Now, persons will say to me, but vitamin C is protectful against UTIs. Well, it's not as good as cranberries or cranberry juice or cranberry pills. And of course, urologists will tell us that there's no good controlled study that says that works either, but I still think it changes. We know it changes the pH of urine, so I tell persons who are prone to urinary tract infections to take cranberry juice. Also, persons will tell me, well, it decreases the duration of a common cold or viruses. Well, this has not been proven to be accurate. So if you can't prove that to me, but I can tell you it has a high potential of increasing your disease activity, those cells that are helping out, why would anyone take vitamin C? I don't know. I tell persons not to. Vitamin B12. We know that deficiencies of vitamin B12 can cause cerebral white matter lesions, lesions in your spinal cord. Persons who don't have multiple sclerosis that have B12 deficiencies would not be able to stand severe B12 deficiencies, might have difficulty standing up here with their feet together and trying to balance. So in addition, it can cause anemia, fatigue, and all kinds of sensory symptoms. So if you have a B12 deficiency, you should be treating that. There is no evidence that treating B12 will hurt a person. So B12. Now B6 has been associated with some neuropathies. So persons who have peripheral neuropathies need to be careful that they're not taking B6. But pure B12 has not been proven to be harmful at all. So persons will come into the office and they'll see that their vitamin B12 level was like 1,200, and it gets reported out from the lab. I have an electronic medical record system, and so it goes out to their little hub, and they, the lab says high, and they see my little comment that says good or okay, because that's great. It doesn't hurt them. So again, I usually tell persons who are having fatigue, go ahead and support your B12. Omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids, they can be, and there's been a lot of literature recently talking about the possible mild immunosuppressive effects, and should I take this? Well, there's really not enough studies to tell us that this is helpful. There have been none that there's been clinical significance. So I tell persons, well, you shouldn't do that versus a disease-modifying therapy. But there are cautions with this. Persons who have any type of risk factors that they might need to be on anticoagulants, antiplatelets, diabetics, antihypertensive medications, these can actually work against that. Persons who have bleeding problems, if you're going to take one of these omega-3s, your primary care doctor will say, well, you need to take a vitamin E. That, we know, has been proven to increase macrophages and T cells, so that's not good. Coenzyme Q10, like most antioxidants, it says that it can help with your immune system, and most of what it does is stimulate your immune system. Please remember, if you have MS, you do not have a decreased immune system. Your immune system is just confused. It's just attacking you instead of attacking something else. So you don't need any more soldiers in your army. Your army is doing great. You don't need to help it out. But we do know that coenzyme Q10 can cause liver toxicity and can make your liver enzymes go up. So please, like I tell all of the patients that I treat, if you're on any supplements, please let me know, because if your liver enzymes are going up, I want to know whether it's your supplements or my drug. So let's talk about that. So please share that. You should avoid long-term use of coenzyme Q10 and whatnot. Okay, caffeine. A lot of persons will consume a regular amount of caffeine. If you're a person that is prone to cystic breast, you don't want to do that because caffeine will cause that problem also. But it does help with fatigue and mental alertness. Do you know that when you drink a cup of caffeine, how long does it take to make you less fatigued or more alert? Anybody know? About 45 to 60 minutes. So if you are using caffeine because you need that to help you with your fatigue or your alertness, please remember that, 45 to 60 minutes. Then guess what? It has a diuretic effect. It's also a urinary irritant. And so 45 to 60 minutes when you're feeling humped up and ready to go, guess what? It's got you enough energy to get to the bathroom because you'll need that. And it does increase your risk for osteoporosis. So I'm not knocking caffeine. Just be very careful with its consumption, especially if you have other problems. Okay, so dietary supplements, again, multivitamins. I don't recommend persons take multivitamins. If you have deficiencies, then treat your deficiencies, but don't. Ginkgo biloba does not, there's no evidence that it will help with cognitive improvement, and some very weak evidence about fatigue. And there's also problems with bleeding and seizures. So the other thing I put on this slide, because it is a supplement, Protandem, Has anybody in the audience heard about Protandim? It's wild up in my area. So Protandim has come to all this fury because people think it's like Tecfidera, because it reduces antioxidative stress, and that's the mechanism of action that Tecfidera espouses to be. You know what? We've only seen this in test tubes. We have not seen this in double-blinded clinical trials. So I tell persons, well, you know what? LifeVantage is the people that are marketing that. If they could prove it worked in MS, they would have done it, because they would have been making an awful lot of money. But you know what? When you read LifeVantage about Protandim, it cures everything. Everything. You won't get any older. You won't have diabetes. You won't have cognitive problems. Anything and everything it cures. In 2012, there was a double-blinded study, the only human study that I am aware of or have been able to find. It looked at lung tissue and reducing the free radicals in lung tissue. And so they gave some persons Protandim, very high doses of Protandim, and they gave some persons placebo. They induced this free radical chemical with drugs, and then they did endoscopies on persons. And guess what? There was no difference in placebo versus versus the Protandim. So I don't recommend it, and I understand that it might be a multi-level marketing thing. So anyhow, so we're going to talk about a few symptoms. Fatigue is one of the most troubling symptom for multiple sclerosis, but you know what? For some reason, I don't know whether my women are more vocal than my men, but oftentimes my women complain of this more than my men. And so I wanted to talk about that today. It is the most disabling. It can appear at any point in the disease. Persons will come describing that before we diagnose them. It can appear early. It can be come on without any warning. It can be precipitated by extreme temperatures, so really hot, humid, or really cold. Persons who live in cold climates, they get fatigued too. It can generate or worsen your MS symptoms. And it does prevent persons from sustained physical functioning. So if you are going out on disability because of fatigue, you'll need to have a person who knows about MS to work with you to get that, and because it does make work very difficult. There's two different types of fatigue. There's the acute fatigue and the chronic fatigue. Acute fatigue is something that comes on, it's new, or it's a significant increase in your fatigue that has been there for the previous 6 weeks. Chronic fatigue is that's been there more than 50% of days for more than 6 weeks. Why do I spend time talking about that? Because acute fatigue is often associated with a new lesion. And so if we cannot find another problem to cause that acute fatigue, we need to look at your MRI. So the clinical characteristics, overwhelming sense of sleepiness, a constant sense of being tired, a feeling of lack of energy, exhaustion. Again, it's not related to disability. It can affect your motor function, your cognitive function, and we still do not understand this very well. We know that there are many things beyond your MS, physical health, environment, all these different things, sleep disorders. So really, persons should be looking at all of these facets and trying really hard. You know what? What I encourage persons is, please don't let the physical health be a problem. When persons tell me they're tired and fatigued, one of the things I talk about, well, let's talk about diet, let's talk about exercise, because if you become deconditioned, fatigue will be so much worse. So you can do for yourself by staying physically active. The non-pharmacological management, stop smoking. Please, I hope no one in the room smokes. If you smoke, that is something that you can do for yourself. Your MS symptoms will be worse if you smoke. There are studies that have proven that. We have studies that have proven persons who smoke will get to secondary progressive faster, 50% faster than persons who do not. So secondhand smoke counts in that. So if your significant other smokes, make them leave. Make them go outside the house, be nowhere around them. A healthy diet, we talked about adequate sleep, planning ahead. Please, what is most difficult for women? I don't know. Everyone that talks to me, accepting help. But I have to do this. The kids are getting ready to go back to school. I had to do all the back to school shopping. I had this. No, please, accept help. Plan, make activities, let other people help you. They want to be helping you. Stay physically fit and exercise and relax. Good relaxation. There are lots of drugs to treat fatigue. And so I want to point them all out. One of the things I want to point out on this slide, 4-AP, that is a compounded drug that you can get through a compounding pharmacy. If you are on Ampera, you cannot take 4-AP. Ampera is the long-acting form of 4-AP. We've been using 4-AP to manage fatigue for years, and Ampera is indicated for walking difficulties. Hint, hint. Okay, cognitive impairment in MS. Some myths about that, because persons are ask me about this all the time. So only 3% of people know. It's more like 43 to 70%. It does not matter about the disability. Persons of all forms, early, late, can still have cognitive problems. Cognitive problems are not known on MRI. That's so false. We know that now. And so it's not all related to depression. Cognitive impairment can be in any form of MS, even CIS. It's not correlated to function. And unlike other cognitive difficulties, it's not related to age. So the MRI that talks about cognitive impairment, it's the T2 lesions, the black holes, the third ventricle, and the thalamic atrophy, so shrinkage of your brain. So persons, when you're looking at your MRIs with your healthcare providers, look at those areas. The things that are commonly affected: processing speed, complex attention, executive function, word finding, episodic memory, working memory, and encoding into long memory. There are many things that you can do to work on these areas. There are many programs in the computer, Luminosity and other things that you can do to do mental aerobics, physical aerobics, and there's mental aerobics. So if you work on those things that you can. So common complaints, they're listed here. If you have or you think you have a problem with cognitive impairment, it is an invisible symptom. Know that denial is one of the number one things. The thing I wanted to point out here, that persons who are of greater intelligence as far as going back to school, and they seem to have less atrophy. So neuropsychological testing is the gold standard. So there are several ways, both compensatory and so bladder dysfunction. I'm not going to go into this in great detail because MSIF is here, or they were out there. They were part of your group. Yeah, they support the foundation, supports the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. Their newsletter this month covers bladder dysfunction. You can get it on the web, so go to their newsletter. But there are 3 types, and they're all up here. All right. Thank you. I'm able to answer questions, but I had a time frame, and that's one of my biggest challenges, is staying on time.
So we're going to do Q&A right now, all right? So we could start on that side of the room. You could go this way, you go back and forth. Let them see you over here. They haven't gotten to see your smiley face. So.
I was told to look at the
I know. All right, so anybody have a question?
Are the copies of your slides online, or?
They will be, the slides will be online, yes.
You'll see that.
No. So his question was, vitamin C can increase your immune system, and so should you stay away from all foods that have vitamin C? No. You need vitamin C for other activities and cell growth and whatnot, but you should not supplement. You don't need extra. So the dietary requirement for vitamin C in Florida, we don't have any difficulty getting. You don't need to take extra. Good question. Very good question.
So I'm going to run around the room with the microphone. So we want to hear you. They won't see you, but we want to hear your voice when you're asking the question, okay? So who's next? Anybody over here? I see one here. Anybody down there? Start raising your hand so I know where I'm going.
What do you think about the supplement called turmeric?
I didn't understand.
Turmeric. Turmeric.
Tamara. The supplement Tamara, that does increase your immune system. So in my little Bible that I use yes, so I don't recommend supplementing with that, no.
Who had a question?
Is there any natural way to take care of urinary incontinence besides cranberry?
Is there any urinary tract infections? So cranberry juice is one. Drinking regular large amounts, so anywhere from 64 to 100 ounces, depending upon but keeping your bladder flushed, and going to the bathroom regularly. So making sure that you do those three things are the best things. And then, of course, there's all the hygiene issues, making sure that you are wiping from the front all the way to the back, and not sometimes persons who have as the change of life, your GYNs will ask you not to take baths as frequently, take more showers.
You were talking about the myths, I guess, of mythical cures, and I was wondering if people have approached you about silver.
About silver. No one has approached me about silver yet, but I have not read a study yet that silver cures MS. So, good. I'll look it up, though. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the supplement biotin.
Biotin, yes.
Is it okay to take?
Biotin it should not be harmful to you, so yes, you could take biotin.
Any other questions? If there's no other questions, then we're going to let Tricia have a seat, and we're going to get started with Jennifer. Thank you.